What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Smash JT. And yes, I am making a video talking about video games. Been a hot minute since I did one of these. But no, seriously, what is happening right now with in particular, the actual game that sparked my interest in making this video was Nintendo remastering and HD upgrading, or whatever you want to call it, to Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for the Nintendo Switch. And that's a game that isn't really that old in comparison relative to a lot of the other games that are getting remade and remastered. Like another title like Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening comes to mind. Dark Souls is another one that's been remade recently on remastered on the PS5. It's happening a lot. It's been happening. It's always been a thing, but it seems to be even more of a thing now during the pandemic, is remastering, remaking, re-releasing, HD upgrades, whatever you want to call it, just remaking these games, reimagining them, and putting them out on a modern console. And it got me wondering, are modern games ruining retro? If it's your first time to Smash JT, make sure you hit that subscribe button, bell for notifications. Give me that like if you enjoy what I'm doing here. And let me just get to the topic at hand. Now, those of you who have been around my channel for a while probably remember me making a video in the basement of my childhood home where I was wondering, I asked the question in that, are retro games useless? Because I was packing them up and bringing them to my home in California. I'm from Massachusetts originally. And I'm like, God, I have so many old retro games and they take up so much space. And I don't really play them, to be quite honest, because I always end up playing them on a modern console or ROMs or a more convenient way of playing them. And I don't want to make this like, oh my God, playing them on a CRTV is the best. You got to play old school on the actual hardware. I don't care. That's not what this video is about. I know people are going to try to twist it into that, but it's not. It's more of me just coming to the realization of these modern remakes of the games and quality of life improvements, like Legend of Mana, where they're letting you skip battles and faster load times and all these other things that just almost make the original useless. So it's kind of another take on this. And I'm not wanting to come off as a hater of retro gaming. It's just me and my experiences logically with real life and how I'm feeling with the games. I have tons of retro games in my house, way more than my wife would ever like me to have, but I don't ever really play them. And they keep coming out with remasters, reimaginings, remakes, and I find myself buying that version before I even get around to playing the one I had previously, or going back to revisit the one that I had previously, because I'd rather play the upgrade with the limited amount of time that I have with the quality of life updates and upgrades and everything that they have available to them. Take, for example, The World Ends With You. I got that as a Christmas present like 3 years ago on my 3DS. And it's still sealed. I never had the time to actually get around to playing it. Yeah, I know, first world problems. I'm sure plenty of you can relate to the feeling of not having enough time, but having the game. And then finding out that it's getting remade and remastered with quality of life improvements and being put on the Nintendo Switch. And I'm like, I don't know if I even want to bother opening that. I'd rather play the latest and greatest and get the best experience possible out of it. And it doesn't always have to be remade or remastered. That's the thing. Like the Nintendo Online program, where you can just like have access to the internet and pay, what is it, $20 a year, and have all these games at your disposal to play. Why plug in the Super Nintendo? Why plug in the old retro hardware? Not to mention the NES Mini, SNES Mini, Genesis Mini, PlayStation Mini, and all the other minis that are coming out and have come out that I haven't even named here. There's so many ways to play these games. So in a way, this topic bleeds into the are retro games useless topic, but it's wholly separate because it's kind of building upon that. It's do I even need those games? Because these games keep getting remade and remastered into a, more often than not, better form with quality of life improvements. Now, I don't want to turn this video into a bitch fest about how the new takes on these games, especially coming from Nintendo, are like full price, $59.99 MSRP games, or on the PS5, Dark Souls, I believe, was $69.99 MSRP USD. But because that's a whole nother topic for another day. Like, I don't really get mad at the pricing structure per se of these games, because I look at it more of a, if you're a consumer, you can speak with your wallet. And if you don't want to spend full price on these games, like I just bought Mario 3D World with Bowser's Fury for the Switch. Even though I already have it on my Wii U, and it's actually in my Wii U right now, I bought it for the conveniences of being able to play it on the go, and I wanted to play Bowser's Fury in that case. But I don't have Skyward Sword pre-ordered, because I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to get around to playing that, and I already have it on the Wii, and I played it way back in the day, and I don't really remember it. It was kind of sluggish at the beginning, and I don't know if I have the time to go through all that again. But when I do, I'll go pick it up and pay whatever it is if I have the time to go out and play it. My point with this video more focuses on the whole, these games that have come out previously, if you wait long enough and it's a good enough game, outside of Earthbound and Mother 3, I mean, sure, there are other examples, but that's the one that comes to mind. There will be an update to the game that comes out eventually, and you can play that one instead. And yeah, you can say, oh, but if it hasn't come out yet, you can go back and revisit that game. Yes, you totally can, but I don't. Because there's so many games out right now that I haven't had the time to get to that I want to. Why would I go back in time to revisit some of these retro games that, let's be honest, when I was a kid, were so amazing and fantastic, and to a great extent, still hold up today. I played Legend of Zelda on a live stream on the 35th anniversary yesterday, and had a hell of a time. It was great. But more often than not, I'd find myself looking at the next gen consoles, or the previous gen, or the current gen, and playing the games from that. Not even the remake remasters, but just the original titles that are coming out. I can't even keep up with those. So I'm looking at my retro catalog in the past, and while I would love to, if I had a device to freeze time and just play games forever, yeah, of course I'd revisit that. But my point here is, I guess it comes down to the time in your life, and how much you have to allocate to video games, and what are you doing with that finite amount of time. And more often than not, it's trying to keep up with what people are playing today for the most part, and enjoying what the latest revolutions in gaming are. That's not to disparage retro gaming. That's not to say that the old games don't have anything to offer. I don't want that to come across in this video. I'd like to say straight up, I'd play those games all day if I had the time, but I don't. So I find myself just playing the updates and the new games now. And when the remasters, remakes, HD remakes, with the quality of life changes come out, I'd be far more inclined to play that version of the game. Like I said earlier, Legend of Mana, I have that game, like physically, on PlayStation 1 at my house. I have a PlayStation 1 hooked up. I could simply just put it in and play it. But I remember back to when I was younger and I bought that game and I played it, and I was like, it's an okay game. It was not what I was expecting it to be, but it was entertaining and enjoyable enough. It was just kind of quirky and different than I expected, but it was good enough, but not good enough for me to be like, oh man, I gotta put this game in my PlayStation and play it right now. I kind of am just like, I'll wait for it on the Nintendo Switch and play it with the quality of life updates and changes on that. But then I found out that most likely in the United States, it's not going to be a physical, at least initially. And it makes me say, well, I don't really need that in my life right now at full price on a next-gen console anyway. So I'll just wait for a sale on it. That's me. Personally, that's how I feel about a game that, from a series that I absolutely adore, Secret of Mana being one of my favorite games of all time. And that's how I feel about, there's so many other choices right now with games that it's hard to justify what you're going to play next. And choosing the game that you want to play is a challenge in itself. Like, For example, currently I'm playing Fire Emblem Three Houses, which, yeah, I know it's an older game now because it's been out for, what, at least over a year now, I think, maybe 2 years. And I'm having the time of my life with it. And it's very challenging. I'm playing it on hard mode. I'm playing it where if one of your characters dies, they're gone from the game for good. So I'm taking my time to get through each level to make sure I don't lose any characters. And I'm not frustrated with it. I enjoy a really good challenge and the storyline to boot. Fire Emblem Three Houses is more than taking up enough of my time every single night that I play it before I go to bed, where sometimes that's all I find time to play between my job and getting out and working out and living my life with my family. I have very little time to actually game these days. And when I do, it becomes a challenge to pick the next game where it's going to be something that's going to hook me and keep me wanting to come back to it with the slew of games that I already have out. And I guess to circle back to the original premise of this video, where Skyward Sword, a full price MSRP game, people are bitching and complaining about it, even though that's the vocal minority clearly because it's #1 seller on pre-orders on Amazon right now, where I just say, if you don't want to pay the price for it, don't. And speak with your wallet. But Nintendo already knows they're going to get your money. Like, it's the #1 bestseller on Amazon. They know. And it's easy money for the most part to update and renovate these games for the modern era, as long as they have the source code and all that kind of stuff. For the most part, it's a lot easier than building a game from scratch, especially a big world classic game. So, I mean, just look at a game like Grand Theft Auto 5. People have been waiting for Grand Theft Auto 6 for what? Over a decade now? So these games are being built to last, and I'm at the point right now where, like in my example of Grand Theft Auto 5, I played the game, I got halfway through it, had the time of my life, but that was right around the time I had my first kid, and I played through it a little bit there, and then my kid got old enough to start understanding what was happening in the game, and I'm like, I can't really play this game around my kid, so I had to put it on the back burner. And by the time I actually want to get back to that game, it might be another decade from now, and at that point, they'll probably have Grand Theft Auto 5 Super Z Spectrum HD 4K 12K renovated, before Grand Theft Auto 6 even comes out. So I guess all the way back to the original point, like I said, focusing on the games that are coming out right now, I feel like it's ruining retro. I had this mindset of when I was a kid that I would raise my kids and show them all my favorite games when I was younger. And to a certain extent, I've done that. I've played Secret of Mana with my son, then I played the remake with them. I've showed him Super Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo. And he likes them, and they keep his attention. But there's just so many, I hate to say better experiences, but more accessible experiences, more convenient for users nowadays, that it makes it really hard to go back to retro. And I wonder, ultimately, if this whole situation is going to be the end of retro gaming as we know it, where people will just come to a head in their life and they'll just say, I'm not going to play that old game. I'd rather play it on this system with the updated graphics, for the most part. Yes, I know there are purists out there. I get it. I'm just giving you guys my experience, my feelings, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on this, just to see if I'm alone on this, or if I'm going crazy, or I'm probably going crazy, but where I stand on this issue with you guys, and how you feel about these modern remakes getting remade, and if it's making the retro games basically useless. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, you stay smashing. Smash